Today, we're going to look at what I wish I knew when I started as a founder 25 years ago. We're going to look at what I've learned over those 25 years that I can pass on and is very important to a new founder. You might as well learn it here instead of making all the painful mistakes that I've made. This is Raw Startup. I've built companies my entire life. I've been an entrepreneur for the past 25 years and I learned a lot from that. The latest being Vivino, the world's largest wine app and community with more than 35 million users all over the world. 20,000 people install Vivino every single day, and over time we raised $57 million. There are obviously hundreds of different things I can pass on, but I've boiled this down to 6 different things. The 6 different things that I find most important, the 6 things that I wish I knew, and the 6 things that are relevant for almost all founders. When I started out as a founder, I really wasn't very good. There was no YouTube to learn from. When I think about it, there really wasn't much of an internet either. The only alternative was reading books, but books were usually old, and even the new books were written last year. Once they came out and got printed, they were already kind of old. With very little experience and not that many people around me to ask what's right and wrong, I did a lot of trial and error. Trial and error is a way to learn, but it can be an expensive way to learn. So thank you very much to all the early investors that backed me and my teams. They certainly pay for my founder education. Thank you very much for that. At least I'm gonna do whatever I can to help the next generation of founders and entrepreneurs. I'm gonna pass on whatever I've learned to you guys, and hopefully you can learn from that. I can promise you there are things in this video that will surprise you. Things that are not in any textbook, but are from my real life experience. All that said, you can learn from others, but you can't learn everything. You will be making decisions out of uncertainty. In those cases, just do it. That's the best advice. Just do it. With that said, let's go to the list. Number 1, be short-term impatient and long-term patient. I'm sure you heard this before. Doing a startup is a marathon, not a sprint. That sometimes confuses people to thinking, hey, we have to run slowly to preserve energy just like a marathon. But that's not the case with a startup. With a startup, you're sprinting your way all the way through the marathon. There's no preserving energy. The fact that it's a marathon does not mean you have a lot of time. You're still in a hurry, and that's why we like the expression, be short-term impatient, but long-term patient. So you are sprinting like a crazy one, but you also know this is a long marathon. Yes, this is gonna take some time, but it still means everything has to be done right now. Short-term impatient, long-term patient. Great founders know they have to run this marathon like a sprint. With that, let's go to number 2. Number 2, build a great founding team. In the early days of a startup, the only thing that's there is an idea and the founding team, nothing else. Some people do great alone, but startups with more than one founder generally do better. Doing a startup is hard, and having someone there to support you and challenge you just increases your chance of success. Founders usually have different skills because you need different skills for the different tasks that need to be solved. For a tech startup, it's good to have some tech skills. Very often you'll need sales skills, and in most cases you need domain knowledge too. Make sure you have all the skills needed to get the startup off the ground. In Vivino's case, domain knowledge would have been knowledge about wine, and we had none of that. We knew nothing about wine or the wine industry. We just needed help picking the right wine. But that all turned out to be an advantage because we understood our users really well, because they also had very little wine knowledge. So in our case, very little domain knowledge turned out to be an advantage. Generally, I recommend you have a diversified founding team that can do around 90% of whatever needs to be done. And this is where multiple founders come in. I don't know a lot of amazing engineers that also are great salespeople. You need multiple founders to get both. I've done a video only about finding a co-founder, so please check out that video for more information. This cannot be underestimated. You have to have an amazing founding team. On that note, let's go to number 3. Number 3, focus like crazy. This is really not that complicated, but can be really hard to do in practice. When you're building a startup, you're always in a race. You race against the competition, a race against time, a race against running out of money. Either way, what's important is finding out what needs to be done to win this race and then focus like crazy. This all sounds pretty easy until you get tempted, and then it's not easy. That's when you have to focus like crazy. Let me give you two examples. You'll be tempted by money. Somebody can offer you 25K for this consulting gig. All you have to do is change your product a little bit, make a special version, not quite what you focus on, but we really need that money. Every time you do that, you lose to the competition. If you do it very often, you'll lose the race. At some point, your product just cannot compete anymore. For Vivino, the temptations came from a different direction. We have a new business opportunity coming to us every single day. Some company somewhere in the world that says, this is an amazing opportunity, you need to do this right now. That happens every single day. That's what happens if you have a high-profile company with millions of users. Most of these opportunities are easy to say no to, but some of them are not. What do you do when the really big guys come knocking on your door? You're still a small startup, suddenly Amazon, Samsung, or Google want to do business with you. Now, it's suddenly a lot harder to say no. For instance, when Amazon in 2014 wanted to build their own smartphone, the Amazon Fire, they knocked on our door. They needed help with recognizing wine bottles and data on wine. We ended up investing heavily in this partnership with Amazon, but when the phone was launched, it went nowhere, was taking off the market only months after. The resource we put into that partnership could have been used to put into building a better product and winning against the competition, and that's a problem. We should have stayed focused, but it's hard to say no to Amazon. When Amazon launched the product, they had founder Jeff Bezos present the Amazon Fire phone, including some of the Vivino powered features. So at least we got that out of it. We got Jeff Bezos pitching Vivino. Not bad. My advice here is to only take the best opportunities. The opportunities that align with your focus, but at the same time are a win-win for both companies. It's important that it's both companies because otherwise there's a chance the other party pulls the plug after you invested into this partnership. So focus like crazy. Sometimes you have to pivot, change direction. That's fine too. Just don't try and do many things at the same time. When you pivot, you focus everything on that. Great. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, learn to operate and be frugal. You're now running a business. A startup is a business. There's no way around that. It means you have to learn the basics of running a business. I prefer that one of the founders knows how to run a business, or at least wants to learn it fast. If that's not possible, find somebody who can help quickly. You gotta make sure the business is well operated. I'm not saying it's very difficult, but you have to prioritize it and get it right. If the business doesn't operate, nothing works and the startup's gonna fail. So you have to know your numbers, both financial and others. The basics have to be running and the salaries have to go out on time. The other thing here is being frugal, especially in the early stages of the company. What you have is equity, shares in the company that you can sell to get the company off the ground. But you can only sell that once. When you've sold 1% of your company, it's never coming back. Now to the tricky part. That 1% of the company has one value in the early days, hopefully a very, very different value later on. You have to be very, very careful you don't sell too much at the lower price that you can sell later at a much, much higher price. Let me give you a very real and literal example of that. With Vivino, the value changed rapidly from the early days to later. For 1% of Vivino in 2011, I could buy a Chevrolet Trax. 2 years later, and the value of the company increased a lot. If things go well for you, this is also what happens to you. It's not a unique Vivino thing. Actually, 2 years later, the exact same 1% would have gotten us a McLaren 720S. This is obviously not about buying cars. It's about how many resources you have to build your startup. So, be frugal in the early days so you won't have to buy too many Chevrolets when you can have a McLaren. Good, we're done with the cars. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5, learn to sell. I get it, most founders hate to sell. They want to be founders, not salespeople. However, as a founder, you will be selling. You will be selling your startup. That's your job. Stop whining, this is your dream. This is not only about selling products to your customers. This is about selling your startup to everyone. You'll be selling it to investors. You'll be selling it to new employees that have plenty of other opportunities, but you will convince them that they need to take a chance with you. This may come as a surprise to you, but this is what being a founder is. Selling, convincing, evangelizing your startup when nobody else has faith in it except for you. So how do you actually do that? I think the most important thing here is to realize that it is an important part of your job. Realizing that being a founder is very much about selling. Being serious about it, learning about it, and always being prepared for selling. Obviously, when you meet somebody who's amazing at selling, learn from them. I've met very few founding teams that didn't at least have one founder that could really sell the message. I think it's hard to succeed without that. But don't worry, you can learn it, just prioritize it. Number 6, think big, start small. You really want to think big. Tell the world you're building the Starship Enterprise, even though it looks like a small rocket right now. This is really something I learned by moving to the US. Everybody thinks big here. When you come from a small place, it's easier to think small, and we very often do so, but not here. In the US, people think big, everything's bigger here, and you should really think big when you build a startup. However, don't start by building the Starship Enterprise when it's your first spacecraft. Instead, you should be thinking big, but starting small. The reason why this is so important is because you won't get it right the first time. Imagine if you start by building the Starship Enterprise and you don't get it right. That's not a great idea. So let me repeat that. You won't get it right the first time. Nobody ever does. This also means you should not build for scale. If you get 1 million visits to your website the first day, your service will crash. Great. We certainly had that happen a few times with Vivino, and usually what we got out of it was more press and more attention. Also, let me give you a little secret here. Nobody gets 1 million users on the first day. Sorry. So why is it important not to build for scale? It's important not to build for scale because it's a waste of resources. You're building for something that you might need later. All those resources should be put into what's important, the product. So don't build for scale. This is all about execution. You need to think about what the next small thing that you execute on gets you one step closer to the big idea. Always think about the next step, the next small step that takes you to the big idea, the Starship Enterprise. Starting small also means you have to say goodbye to perfection. Keep it simple, not perfect. This is a big challenge for a lot of founders. They want to build and launch perfect products. In the real world, that's very, very difficult. I believe in MVP, minimum viable product. Build the smallest possible thing and then listen to your customers. I often hear the argument, I love Apple. They build such amazing, perfect products. That's what I want to do. That is true. Apple build amazing, perfect products. And they have the resources to do it. Guess what? You're not Apple. So start small. Keep iterating till you get it right. Iterate, iterate, iterate. Keep iterating till you get it right. So, always think big, start small. Great. We're not quite done yet. This was a list that was really hard to do. I had a lot of runners-up that didn't quite make the cut. So this is my list. I'd love to hear from you what you think is missing on the list. I've started the party right down there in the comments where I put some of my runners-up. Things that I think are important but didn't make the top 6 here. I put them in there, and guys, please put some of your stuff in there. What do you think should have made this list? Number 1, be short-term impatient and long-term patient. Number 2, build a great founding team. Number 3, focus like crazy. Number 4, learn to operate and always be frugal. Number 5, learn to sell. Number 6, think big, start small. There you have it. This is the final list. If you're a new founder, I hope you can really use this. So try and not make these mistakes, at least make some new mistakes. That's it. If you want more videos just like this one to help you build your startup, please subscribe to my channel right now. Thank you very much for watching.